Say hello to ovulation. We are, or I should say, I am hosting a totally free live fertility training called How to Restore Ovulation and Get Pregnant Naturally. So, we're going to go through what our proven process is for taking women from HA to ovulation to pregnancy. So, if pregnancy is a goal of yours or overall fertility is a goal of yours, this is definitely going to be super valuable for you. In this training, we are going to show you how to restore ovulation after HA and show you that it isn't rocket science. And so you don't need to, let all these doctors tell you you're never going to get pregnant. You're always going to have to be on the pill. And we're going to take you through how to do this process naturally and really explain to you like what your body is fully capable of. All it really takes for you to achieve this is knowledge about what impacts ovulation, empowerment that you have what it takes and that you're capable of recovery, and to take action instead of just hoping that something magically changes without you having to change anything. So in this free training, I'm going to teach you, what you need to know about each and every one of these aspects so that you can take your fertility into your own hands. In the training, we're going to cover the 5 most effective steps for restoring hormone function and menstrual cycles. We're going to go through the keys to hormone homeostasis so that you can have a prolonged, healthy cycle. We're going to go over the most common issues that get in the way of recovery and pregnancy. We're going to go through some real-life client case studies to show you how these strategies work in real life. And we're going to do a live Q&A. So if you have questions that you want to ask about anything from HA to our programs and how we operate, you'll have the opportunity to ask. And then at the very end, we're going to share information about our new program, Restore Your Fertility, which is a 10-week program that we will be able to take you through if you really want to commit to the process that we're going to teach you, with our help. So if you are ready to get that cycle started, enroll today. You do have to sign up and register for the event. Just go to thehasociety.com/webinar and you will see the enrollment form on the page. Just pop in your name and email and we'll send you the details to join the call. The event is going to be June 13th at 12 p.m. Central Time. That is 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 o'clock Mountain Time. It's 6 p.m. in the UK. I think it's like 7 p.m. in the other parts of Eastern Europe. So just you Google that, your time zone in the Central Time Zone, and get ready to say hello to ovulation in our How to Restore Ovulation and Get Pregnant training. That's thehasociety.com/webinar, and I can't wait to see you there. Welcome to the Hypothalamic Amenorrhea Podcast. I'm Danny Sheriff, your host, certified fertility awareness practitioner, functional nutrition counselor, and founder of the HA Society, and of course, an HA recovery coach who has walked where you currently are walking. This is the place to come if you care about getting your period regularly. This podcast aims to educate, inform, and keep you motivated on your period and HA recovery track. So let's dive in. But last thing, nothing on the show should be taken as medical advice, so please seek the advice of your physician.
Welcome back to the Hypothalamic Amenorrhea Podcast. I have an OG and a dearly beloved friend and guest, Sarah, who's going to share with us her fertility journey. And I think you guys are going to see yourself in it, whether it's all of her story or part of her story. This is just such a story of hope without the struggle. And I'm just so excited for her to share. Okay, so Sarah, start from the very beginning. Tell us your story.
I guess for starters, in terms of family background, I grew up in a family that's quite health conscious, and brought up just how different foods affect our bodies and I think my dad would make comments about other people's bodies, or my mom and sister, would make comments about their own bodies. So I think it was kind of a little bit of something I noticed probably from early on. Even though I was in a smaller body as a kid, I was actually a little bit scrawny, but I think there was still kind of an emphasis on being small. And as I went through high school, my body kind of changed from a scrawny little kid to like an actual female body. And I gained weight, and was uncomfortable with that at the time. I was doing a couple sports and everything like that, and yet still gaining weight. And I think that part kind of bothered me. And yeah, I think at that time I started to try to eat healthier, or maybe after cross country practice, run extra, or that kind of a thing. And it was kind of a stressful year. I think my junior year of high school with, taking AP classes and working a couple jobs and sports and everything like that. Just started getting stressed, and I did lose my period. I think it might have been the beginning of my junior year of high school. I didn't really think too much of it, just thought that was kind of interesting, no idea why. And it probably wasn't until about a year later that I mentioned it to my mom that I hadn't had a period. She thought that was pretty weird too. So she took me to my PCP. And the PCP said, you're in sports, so that's probably why, but I'm not too worried about it. If it keeps going like that, then, maybe after your next cross country season, you can come back or go to a doctor or something like that. And so we said, okay, yeah, sounds good. Didn't really think too much of it. And then, my mom probably, after my cross country season ended and my period didn't come back that winter of my senior year of high school, she took me to a kind of a naturopathic doctor who prescribed estrogen and progesterone creams, kind of like a HRT kind of a thing, to jumpstart a period. And I'm not sure what happened, but I became kind of an emotional wreck during those months that I was on them.
You know what? I just
Uh-huh.
want to say I'm so glad that you said that, because I also went on HRT, and I'm not anti it, you know what I mean? But
Mm-hmm.
like when I had horrible, and I'm talking about, I was an emotional wreck. I was weeping. I was just like,
Mm,
oh, like I'd just be there, and my husband or like a family member would ask me a question, and I'd answer it, and all of a sudden I'd just start crying. I would just
yeah.
start crying, and I am not an overly emotional person. I mean, I feel like my emotions are coming back and are in like the normal range now that I'm recovered. You know what I mean? But to go from like, I just felt like mentally the most unstable person, because I just couldn't understand what was going on with me. Like I couldn't understand why I was just crying all the time. And then on top of it, I felt hopeless. So I just really,
Mhm.
I appreciate when people share the other side of hormones, or adding hormones onto a metabolism that potentially isn't ready for them yet. You know what I mean? There's
Mhm.
probably a reason why our body turned it off, right? And that like
Mhm.
sometimes you just can't throw hormones onto a situation, right? There are side
Mhm.
effects. And so I'm not anti it, but like we see this a lot, is like a lot of people are prescribed hormones just to try to quote unquote jump start the cycle, which technically can't be done. Like that's like trying to troubleshoot at the ovary level when this is really a hypothalamus, you know what I mean,
Mhm.
issue.
Mhm.
So I just, okay, so continue, but I just wanted to be like, yes, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I guess I wasn't expecting that, and I think very similarly to you, just start crying or all the time. I remember just being in the shower and yeah, constantly crying. Um and so Yeah, I think I honestly did kind of feel depressed. I really had no appetite anymore. It was just kind of one of those things. I don't think like the not eating part was super intentional at that time. I think I was just like, oh, I guess I don't really have an appetite and I don't really feel like doing anything. I'll just lay in bed after practice versus, kind of like going and hanging out with friends. So that was, not a good time. Um, I don't think I really noticed that I was losing weight until my senior year of high school. My family and I went on vacation to on spring break. I was wearing a swimsuit, and my parents saw that I was had obviously lost weight, looked a little bit like a skeleton. I think they were like, "Whoa, have you lost weight?" And I was like, "I don't know, maybe I haven't really felt that good." And so they were definitely really concerned about that. It was actually a pretty significant amount of weight. I think my mom ended up being like, "We need to weigh you when we get back," and all this. So yeah, my parents both like tag teamed. My mom was starting to weigh me every morning, and my dad would, when I'd get home from school, count up my calories. Like he'd ask me about everything I ate that day and like Google how much calories it was. And then if it didn't hit the amount that he felt like was um, adequate, he would like make a like giant snack at like 10 p.m. and then I'd be upset and not want to eat it. And so yeah, that wasn't a great time. And he'd wake up early. It was very caring, but at the time it felt kind of controlling. And I think when we think about like disordered eating and how there is a huge component of control with that, it felt like more control kind of being taken from kind of that control that had already started like junior year of high school.
Yeah. And I like that you even are open about this too, because I think sometimes we think, and it could be really confusing to develop disordered eating or like an eating disorder almost like accidentally. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like when I
Yeah.
listen to your story, like, okay, yes, so you're probably just naturally on the leaner side of life. You know what I mean? Like being active, being a kid, and probably just didn't know that you were under eating. So, like, honestly, like we could have like solved this, with like, you know, peanut butter and toast in the morning, right? And
Yeah.
this isn't like bashing parents, because our parents, like when, like whenever you look at your child, you're just like, I gotta help, right? And
Yeah.
so it's just like one of those things where it's like, and then obviously being put on HRT was not great. I mean, like I totally spun out of control. Like I wouldn't be surprised if I stayed on it longer, if I wouldn't have been down the same route. And because I felt so out of control on HRT, I could imagine just like any bit of stability and or control just felt so alluring, just because it felt so horrible, right? So I
Yeah.
mean, like the whole original point to this was that like sometimes disordered eating or eating disorders doesn't happen because you hate your body. Sometimes it's just like a weird combination of things and just reaching for control. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely kind of look back at maybe my thoughts around my body, like my junior and senior year of high school. I did feel like, you know, um, I felt like it might not be a bad thing if I lost weight, but I don't think I was willing to like not eat because of that. Like I was like, oh, I should probably just eat healthier. But that was kind of like mostly the extent of it.
Right,
So
right. Yeah.
yeah, so it really wasn't until HRT that yeah, my appetite completely left and then control was taken. I think I was emotionally on the fritz to where I was just like, I'm not having any of this. Yeah, and so my parents and I ended up going to a family counselor because we had never like had any sort of like arguments or issues in the past. And then it was like every morning I was like bursting into tears that I like didn't want to eat the food that my dad had made and stuff like that. So um yeah, and or another thing too is like I would throw away food that they made for me like when they weren't looking, or I'd like chug water before my mom weighed me and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, and they were kind of realizing that probably wasn't sneaky enough. And so they were like, what is happening? So yeah, we went to a family therapist, and the family therapist was like, so with this eating disorder, blah, 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 like said something like that. And I think even my mom was like, eating disorder? What are you talking about? Like, what? I think all of us were just like, wait, what? Like,
Yeah.
what? Yeah. And then my mom starts crying. It was like, you have an eating disorder? I was like, I don't think so.
You're like, I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
pissed that you guys are doing this. I feel crazy on HRT. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So once my parents kind of realized that piece of thing, they were like, oh my gosh, you need to get treatment. And so they had me go to this like treatment center that summer. It was outpatient, but it was very regular. And like a psychologist and doctor and a dietitian that you're meeting with really regularly. And I was very resistant about that. I was not happy to be there, did not think I had a problem. I thought it was like, yeah, crazy that they were making me go to this thing. So it's pretty stubborn, didn't really do the things I was supposed to, just kind of enough to like get them off my case a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. The good thing was though, is that I did go to college that fall. And I just kind of like didn't have my parents on my back anymore and just ate normally and enjoyed college. And I got my period back that fall. It just kind of came
Yay.
back. Yeah, without like really trying.
Yeah.
So that was good. But I definitely know, so I think kind of looking back on that, like I definitely, had disordered eating tendencies like junior and senior year of like trying to eat super healthy or trying to do extra runs, kind of a thing that wasn't healthy. And then it was a bit exacerbated. So yeah, my senior year of college, or sorry, freshman year of college, I just like didn't run anymore and just tried to like eat normally and enjoy the food courts and stuff like that. And felt pretty good with that. So throughout college, like there might be a semester here or there where I wouldn't have a period and would just be like, oh, maybe I'm just stressing or I'm just trying to make sure I need to eat more. I don't know, like, but didn't really work too hard at it. And then, it would be a semester later and it would come back and I'd be like, oh, okay, cool. So didn't think too much of it. I guess before I keep rambling on, I guess I would probably be fast forwarding to 2018. Any thoughts or questions before I jump to?
No, this
Okay.
is so good because I mean, honestly, I'm just so glad that you are sharing it this way because my gosh, like it's never about the food, right? Like it's actually
Mhm.
like not about the food. And so yes, just keep going, keep going. This is so good.
Okay. Okay. Sounds great. Sounds great. So yeah, so I guess I got married in 2016 and then my husband and I moved to Pennsylvania. And like that whole basically first year of marriage, I did still have a period. And then from Pennsylvania, we moved to Boston in 2017, in January of 2017, and period disappeared.
Mm.
So I wasn't like, I was like, oh, sometimes it kind of does that. I know I was like in a car accident and yeah, a couple like starting a new job. So I guess a couple stressful probably life events happened. So I was like, oh, I'll probably come back like it normally does. But a year later and it wasn't back, another 6 months, it still wasn't back. I was like, oh, great. Maybe I have to like do something about this, then just hope it will come back. So yeah, a friend of mine, I think I was talking about it with her, and she actually sent me a copy of No Period Now What, which I read, of course, in like 3 days.
And you're like, this is me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I mean, I guess I knew that some of the disordered eating tendencies, I had those in high school and kind of worked through those kind of a thing. I think I was just still probably even like in denial that I even had the eating disorder in the first place. A bit just being, I think I just had this thought like, oh, I'm just being healthy. I'm not like extreme or anything. But when I read No Period Now What, I felt like it was really helpful because it was like, you can lose your period from restricting even if you don't have a eating disorder. Like you don't have to, be someone that eats 300 calories a day and like be unhealthy.
I feel like it was such a pivotal moment for me because at the time I was eating, I think I would say like I feel like I was eating more than most of my clients are eating like when they first come to me, right? So for me, I really appreciate when people actually share, and like this doesn't mean that you have to share, but I mean, if honestly, if Danny would not have shared her story and how much she was eating and that she lost her cycle, I would probably still be here being like just stuck in a rut because everything that I had previously like looked up about like losing your cycle or like the female triad was always like, you have an eating disorder. I'm like, no, I don't. You want to be small? No, I want to be jacked. You know what I mean? Like you're an athlete. I'm like, I don't play, like college softball anymore. And like all these things that just didn't add up. But then whenever I saw someone eating a normal amount and still developed HA, I was like, oh, snap. Like this actually might be me.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that you shared that you were like, hold on, I'm like eating. I'm not like doing what I used to do in high school. What's going on?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Um, and I think too, like one thing that was also had been going on really since high school. And I think almost is probably what made me think, oh, I should change my eating habits was yes, I went from, I guess, I don't know if numbers helpful in terms of
Oh, I
like,
think numbers
okay,
are super
okay,
helpful.
okay. Like a freshman in high school, I think I was like 90 something pounds. So very still kind of scrawny. And then
Right.
probably junior year of high school, that's when I probably gotten up to about 125.
So
And
helpful. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so I think just gaining the weight was like kind of surprising to me, I guess. I was like, whoa, like how am I gaining weight when I'm like in all these sports and stuff like that? I think looking back on that, obviously like a woman body, you
Yes.
can't be a scrawny kid and be like a woman body. So anyways, all that to say, I when I had lost weight after HRT, it was probably back to around like 90 pounds. That time, that's why my parents were really like freaked out.
Right.
And in college, I was probably more around like 108 or something like that. So I was like, oh, I'm not at that like super unhealthy weight anymore. Like I'm fine. I'm just like, this is just my body. Um, However, one thing that had still kind of always bothered me and made me think like maybe I do have a bit of a problem was sensing um like a binging going on or like hardly eating
Yeah.
during the day and then like eating a ton at night and being like, oh, this doesn't feel normal, or like eat to a level that I was like extremely full with. So my solution to that was getting more like, oh, I need to just like create more rules around myself so I don't do that. So it was always, yeah, I think something I always wanted to work on. But yeah, it was, so I guess kind of fast forwarding back to no period now, what I thought it was just really interesting too, that she talked about, like even when you have calories in the day, like you can't just skimp all day and then
Yes.
eat at night. Like you need to be eating consistently during
Yes.
the day and not. Mhm.
Absolutely, because that drop in energy availability whenever you're on such a fine line of energy homeostasis, like is enough to tip you. It's totally
Mhm.
enough to tip you in the other direction, right? And so, but like think about what's kind of wild is that like almost every woman that I've ever known who's a client or not
Mhm.
has gone through a season of like saving or unknowingly saving all their calories towards the end and then having a bigger meal and then having a bigger dessert. And they're like, see, this is why I can't allow myself to have snacks during the day because then I eat so much at night. And I'm like, what if we're creating the hunger that we're afraid of? Like, what
Mhm.
if we're actually creating that? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
By restricting during the day. So, oh, okay. Sorry. Keep going. Keep
Mhm.
going.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So very insightful book, really helpful in terms of like when we were in Boston, I didn't have a period. I'd, wake up really early, like around 5 or something, go on a walk. Um, and then like just pack really light lunches. Like I honestly just like lettuce greens and maybe like a couple nuts on there.
Right.
Yeah, in a very small container. I like look back at that. I'm like, how did I like not become really, really grumpy? Um, but I will say that anxiety has always been something that I've struggled with, even in Boston too. And I just thought that was my like personality. This is kind of like
Right.
jumping ahead, but that's something that's really changed over time. So
Okay. Let's not
yeah,
forget about talk about that. Okay, but keep going. That's so good. Keep going.
yeah. Yeah. So it's like, I'm fine. I'm not more hungry, or like when it's time, when I am hungry, it's like basically dinner time. So yeah. But reading that book, it made me change a couple things in terms of like not walking in the morning without eating first, maybe putting a little bit of extra nuts on my salad, things like that. I was through that time, I did gain a little bit of weight, probably like not much though, like 3 or 4 pounds. And my cycle came back. So it's pretty quick. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Didn't have to do didn't seem like too much, even though it did kind of seem like hard to do, I guess. Um, and had that period pretty regularly for about a year and a half. And then we moved to Durham, North Carolina in March of 2020. And which was like when the pandemic happened, and we moved, and I started a new job, and we started wanting to try to have a family. So all those things I think just kind of caused emotional stress on top of the fact that like now I was working from home and had a lot more time. So I was a lot more active, and I was like, oh, I should start running again. Like I need a hobby. Um, and I think also just having like the full kitchen at my disposal all the time was kind of not helpful, I guess, in a way that was like, I felt like I had to be more careful because I could
Oh,
easily
yeah.
overeat or something like that. Whereas like when I packed my lunch at work, I don't know, I didn't have to be as like careful or something. Or like I noticed when the whole fridge was here, like I would like eat a whole bunch at like lunch and then feel bad about it. And then like, yeah, had a little bit more like guilt kind of coming up with food, which is interesting.
Which is
So
definitely like leftover diet mentality, right? Because it's always like, make sure that you control your environment. Like, make sure you're not grazing, make sure your counters are clear and that the cookies are out of reach and that vegetables are up front. But yet, like, I think for you, this is such a great learning example of what it kind of looks like to be constantly on the edge of energy homeostasis, where now looking back, we're like, oh, your body was so smart to be like, hey, can you please eat a little bit more? You know what I
yeah,
mean? It's just so,
yeah.
uh, I will always be in awe of the female body being like, excuse me, I know what I need.
Yeah. Yeah, so true. This is a little bit jumping ahead, but I do think that's something huge that me and you worked on together that really has stuck with me is because I think I was bringing up to you just like that I was upset about the fact that I had binged or like felt really guilty about it or something like that. And I think you had asked about like maybe where is restriction, like where can you point to restriction or something like that. And I'm like, I'm not restricting, like, I feel like I eat way too much, like I overeat, like something like that. And you were like, what about like mindset with restriction? Like, like where's that restrictive mindset playing in? Maybe it's just like a phrase you tell yourself kind
Yeah.
of a thing. And that really hit me because I realized that a rule that I had was like only 3 meals, like you shouldn't be snacking or something. I
Mhm.
shouldn't be snacking. And so like when I'd be eating a meal, is say it's like 11:30 and I'm having lunch and I don't think we're going to be able to like have dinner. We're not getting dinner till 7 or 7:30. I would eat to the point that was like uncomfortably like stuffed because like I would not be allowed to have a snack between then. And so that like restrictive mindset was like causing the I guess binge feeling, even though I wasn't like, I'm not restricting because I'm like eating all this food at lunch kind of a thing. So
Yes. And that's why I like restriction. And that's why I actually think like your story's so amazing because throughout your story, you're able to kind of like see that you're able to get your cycle back, right? That you like we're able to actually do this physiologically. But if like we don't actually address the mental chatter in our head, it's
mhm,
like we are going to actually set the stage for this to be a continuous cycle, right? Because so think about physically, we could check the box and be like, look at how much I ate. And mind you, I'm sure it was like potentially tons of protein or actually probably tons of veggies, really. If I remember
mhm.
like your food view in my head as I pull it up in my head, you know what I mean? But like tons of veggies and then just the proof that you felt overly full is enough for us to signify, no, 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 I am eating a ton. And I used to do that all the time. And that's why I asked, I was like, do you think that there is a mental restriction, that is actually creating this,
Mhm, mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that a restrictive mindset I feel like has really, yeah, exactly, really stuck with me. And even like through and after recovery, when I find myself just like keep putting down food, like eating. I'm like, okay, where, like, I'm full and I want to keep eating. Like, what restrictive mindset is setting in? Maybe it's like, I shouldn't be eating this food. I'm not allowed it. Or like, I'm not allowed to snack later or something that, I think when I'm like, actually, you are allowed to snack. You can stop eating because you're allowed to snack. Kind of a thing has been very freeing.
Yes, so helpful. Okay. Keep going. So good.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that was March of 2020. And yeah, period went missing. Tried to do some things because I know in the past I was like, oh, right, no period, now what? So I'd like do this, do that. So I tried to do some different, like, walking or running less, or eating fuller meals or something like that. It was definitely kind of floundering. My period kind of came back, like I had, might be some spotting, and then it'd be a couple months later and a kind of a partial period or something like that. So I was like, it's kind of coming, not really. And then I somehow found Danny's podcast the end of that summer. So that would have been like August-ish of 2020. And I was so excited. I was like, wow, this is, I feel like nobody, like none of my friends or anything would think that like maybe I had some disordered eating, maybe just because I didn't, maybe it was like secretive, I guess, about it. So I feel like even when I brought it up to friends about like, oh yeah, I'm trying to like just exercise less or eat a little more and see if that helps with my period, I feel like they were like, huh, okay. Like, don't really get it. So it was really nice to like have that podcast of other women that were like, yeah, you can be not extreme, I guess, and still not be healthy. So yeah, kind of got it back, started working with Danny. And with working with her, that's when I realized like about like the luteal phase, or like that being something I should note, because at that point, March of 2020, I think I started meeting with Danny. I don't know. I'm just kind of going to throw out a date, but I think it was probably like February of 2020. So it'd been almost a year of trying to conceive, having some kind of periods, I guess, but not conceiving.
Right.
And so I was even kind of like, I am having periods. Like, why can't we get pregnant? Kind of a thing. And I think Danny helped me to realize, like, oh, your luteal phase is quite short, and that's kind of like an HA thing that you need to work on. I was like, what? After all of this year, this has been going on. And like, honestly, even when we were in Boston, I think I probably had short luteal phase. I just didn't know that was a thing. So I probably like, even though I was like, oh, I just gained a couple pounds and was fine. Like looking back on it, I kind of feel like my cycles were like 22 days apart usually. So like, I definitely probably had a short luteal phase. So yeah, I was like, oh, great. Now I have to do more stuff. So yeah, I think, Danny,
I think that's why I think it's so important. Like whenever people are like, you just got to get, a lot of times, like we think that you just got to get your cycle back and that's it. I'm like, hold up. There's a difference between recovering, ovulation and optimizing for conception, right? I mean, it's not like, yes, it can be a drastic difference, but like, that's why it's just like, it's just not the same thing. Like it's in a very essential first step and it is a required step, but it's not exactly the same thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so to kind of continue on, Danny was going on maternity, and so me and Ashley were able to be connected at that time. And feel like you really hit me hard with lots of heart stuff in true Ashley style. Yeah, which really I think was like, oh, like maybe something. So I feel like, even though I was like, yeah, I probably eat sort of weird or probably have some hangups with food or something, but like I feel like when working with you, it was kind of like you asked me a lot of pretty hard hitting questions that made me be like, oh, yeah, I think I do have a problem. Like, with gaining weight, like, okay, maybe I'm not actually as okay as I act like I am with that. some different thoughts and tendencies that were kind of coming to the surface. And yeah, Ashley, so yeah, you'd recommended eating smaller amounts more frequently, adding in protein, because it's something that I had done, especially when I was getting a little bit frantic. I was like, okay, I have to gain weight, I would just eat like bowls of ice cream at one time, which really took me back to that like shame around binge eating. And then I would just like eat bowls of ice cream and then feel upset and embarrassed and why'd I do that? And then not really eat the next day because didn't feel good, and then like
Right.
rinse and repeat. So thankfully working with
I remember that. Yeah. Okay. Keep going. That's good. Keep going.
Yeah, definitely note to anyone out there, not a good idea to gain weight. It sounds like the fun way, but it's not. Got a lot of stomach aches and just got really discouraged.
Yeah, which really did play a role in this, like, okay, well, like, which really kind of led into this association of like, well, when I do eat freely, I feel horrible. That's why I should go back to like this strict control, right? And so you and I really had to work on like, okay, but what if there's a middle? And what does the middle look like, right? Yeah, so good. I'm so glad that you brought that up.
Yeah. It was because I think I was also kind of a little bit in denial too, like, how do I have this problem? I eat bowls of ice cream every day. Like, I don't have any hangups. Like, I eat all foods. I don't restrict, like, blah, 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 kind of a thing. But yeah, I was definitely had some very unhelpful habits. So yeah, you had brought up like let's not try to shove bowls of ice cream. Let's try to do like small, frequent meals. And actually, kind of what I alluded to earlier, that was hard because that really challenged that rule that I didn't realize I had about no snacking.
Yeah.
um, yeah. So then I was like, wait, this is actually harder because now I'm okay, wait, you have to snack. You have to eat something, but I don't want to. But yeah, surprisingly, that was actually really hard to do. And I feel like I would almost like set out every day with like, I'll eat 3 meals and 2 snacks. And then I'd be like, well, I'm not hungry, but I don't know. But my breakfast was kind of big, so I definitely don't need a snack, blah, blah. Like I would just make excuses a lot to
Yeah.
myself. So at that point was when I talked to you about like sending you photos of what I ate. I was like, I gotta have some accountability here because I like give myself an excuse almost every day of like why I don't need to do it, kind of a thing.
Yeah. And so guys, I want you to see, this is so because Sarah's such an OG client, this is like now because Sarah did this is part of everyone's protocol. We have everyone use food. Yes, it was you.
I didn't realize that. Okay, nice.
I was like, Danny, look what my client sent me. Like, this is way more effective than trying to like, it's not that, and the thing is not that you don't trust your clients, but it's like, please tell me as accurately through your blind spot what's going on. And it's just tough, right? Because you don't know it's your blind spot. So someone could be like, yeah, I ate yogurt with granola and like a banana. And what really happened is someone ate 1/4 of a banana, an itty bitty amount of yogurt, and they made their homemade granola that has like no fat in it. So it's literally just oats with cinnamon, right? And so whenever you introduce this is now part of all of our one-on-one clients that we work with. And this is actually now also part of that Restore Your Fertility program that we have going on. So thank you, Sarah.
Awesome.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So then you started to send this to me, and I was actually able to see what you were eating without it being like writing down your food or tracking your food, which is why when I saw it, I was like, brilliant. We've got to keep doing this.
A huge thank you to Tempdrop for sponsoring this podcast. Tempdrop is a fertility awareness monitoring tool that I love. It's a wearable device which you can use instead of taking your temperature manually with a thermometer each morning. As you may know, we recommend the fertility awareness method both as you're going through recovery and 100,000% after you have gone through recovery as you move forward for the rest of your reproductive years. TempDrop gives you everything you need to effortlessly track your fertility. You wear the TempDrop sensor while you sleep for accurate basal body temperature readings without the stress of early morning wake-ups. I personally love and need this because with a toddler, my wake-up times are all over the place and the occasional sleep disruptions are making the use of an oral thermometer increasingly more difficult. TempDrop's accompanying charting app enables you to track an array of symptoms alongside your BBT, including cervical mucus and OPKs, and even gives you sleep insights. Combine these fertility signs all in one place to identify your fertile window, confirm ovulation, plan for your period, or identify pregnancy. Whether you are trying to conceive or avoiding pregnancy, or you want to chart your fertility for health reasons like HA recovery to see where you're at in the process, TempDrop makes fertility awareness accessible to all women, even if you don't have regular cycles or sleeping patterns. Track your ovulation in real time with TempDrop. Get 10% off your order when you go to tempdrop.thehasociety.com and use the code HASociety at checkout. Please support this show by using our link and our discount code. Get your TempDrop at the time of this recording and send us a screenshot of your purchase either via Instagram or you can email us, danny@thehasociety.com, having used our discount code HASociety. So it has to be in the screenshot to get your 10% off. When you send that to us, we will send you free access to our fertility awareness method for HA course. Again, that's tempdrop.thehasociety.com and use HA Society at the checkout to also get access to our course that we usually sell. And one more thing to sweeten the pot is that you can put this 10% code on top of any other pre-existing sales they're doing. So I know that they're doing regularly 15% off and 20% off sales. And so if you go specifically to tempdrop.thehasociety.com, it will apply an additional 10% off to whatever sale is going on. So you can't lose. You get the TempDrop, you get probably multiple discounts, and you get our FAM course. So definitely check it out. And again, support our sponsors so that we can keep giving you this show for free. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah. And that was so helpful for me because then like, if I had that thought of like, oh, it's time to eat a snack, I couldn't just come up with a really dumb excuse of like, well, I'm going to maybe eat an early dinner or blah, 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 like come up with stuff. I'd be like, if I tried to use that excuse with Ashley, like, oh, like I kind of didn't feel like it or something, like that's like, there's not a really good reason for not having a snack. So it really helped kind of push me. And we saw traction. Yeah. Like my cycles, like the luteal phase started lengthening and I got pregnant pretty soon. I don't know, we've been working together a couple months. And yeah, so that was September of 2021. So after like, doing that together, we saw my body really respond to that. So this is like a little bit of a sad part, but Ashley already knows this, but we kind of like as soon as we found out we were pregnant, like I took pregnancy tests quite a bit. And we also, I started bleeding as well. So that was a really early on miscarriage. And thankfully, I'm glad we were meeting during that time because you really kind of coached me through even that grieving process. Because that really, I guess for any women out there who have experienced a pregnancy loss, that really hit me hard. Like I still think about that and like almost start to get sad. So I think that was just really like blindsided me, I guess, because that's something, I guess a year and a half after trying to conceive, we finally get pregnant and then it ends so like tragically. And it was kind of drawn out where they were like, oh, we could just be bleeding because it's like, we're not sure. And then it was like kind of over maybe 4 days where we were like, are we miscarrying? Are we not? Don't know what's happening. I had a like transvaginal ultrasound after that, just so they can see if I needed to do a DNC. Because I think we were actually a little further than we realized. I think it might have
Yeah.
been, yeah. And so, yeah, I went in for that. And the midwife came in to talk to me after that and said, "Oh, so now we know what the problem is." And I was like, "What?" And she was like, "Yeah, see how this like all these little follicles on your ovaries?" And I was like, yeah." And she said, "Yeah, you have PCOS. So yeah, that's why you've had this issues with fertility." And I was like, "Wait, what?" What? Like, I was finally getting traction and I didn't, what? So I just, I asked her, what would you recommend that I do about that? And she looked at me straight in the face and said, "Well, normally I recommend to lose weight and cut carbs." And yeah, if any of you can put yourselves in that boat, I was already like very emotionally fragile after just having a miscarriage. And then her telling me that like I need to lose weight and cut carbs or something. I was just like, I actually started tearing up in the appointment room where I was like, "But I just started eating more carbs and like gaining weight." And she was like, "I don't know what to tell you. Like, you should probably just go to a fertility doctor because I don't know." Like, that's what I normally tell people, but I don't know if that would help you, I guess. I don't know. I was like, okay.
Yeah,
Uh,
I remember that so clearly because obviously, like, you had just told, like, we were walking through this, right? And I was just like, oh, my heart, right? And then, so like, deep sadness and then deep rage. Because then I remember you telling me this, and I was like, she said what to you? She said what? You know what I mean? More of like, but we have all the proof that adding in carbs and you gaining weight has, yes, I'm not saying that a miscarriage is the goal, but this hasn't been possible for you before. And now it is. Yeah, and I just like, this is why I love that you're sharing your story, because many of women have had this exact moment, maybe not surrounding a miscarriage, but working with us or really feeling confident or knowing that, like, it's like really tough to admit that you have HA, knowing that you potentially may have to gain weight, you know what I mean? So to finally come to this acceptance point, and then to hear someone in a white lab coat say, "Well, you just need to cut carbs and lose weight," after she was looking at you knowing good and well, that's why she probably didn't feel good about it, that like, how am I telling this person who's probably already naturally very lean that you just need to cut carbs and lose weight? like, woman, are you using your eyes? Does this actually apply in this situation, or is this just what you always say? You know what I mean? Oh,
yeah.
keep going. Keep going. Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry for my
No, it's great. I know. I appreciate the rant.
oh, my
Yeah, I
heart.
was
My heart.
definitely, yeah. Yeah. So then I was like, "Oh no, like fertility clinic, are we gonna have to do IVF or like IUI? Or like what are we gonna have to do?" And so I was able to get an appointment, and kind of from that like September through our first appointment was like in January of 2022. I feel like my motivation really lost steam. And I think you saw that probably, where I was like, I don't know. Like, you're like, "Okay, come on, keep going, keep going." I'm like, "Oh, I don't know. Like, what do I have? Like, is this even going to help? Like, what if we just kind of get another miscarriage because of the PCOS? Like, I don't know."
Yeah,
Like,
because at the time you were really convinced, and like I think like we even stopped working together a little bit just because you were really convinced that you had PCOS, because like you had just been through this traumatic event. A doctor, just looked at it and said, "Oh, this is why," right? And so anybody, it would be hard to go in the first off, it's hard to go against what a medical professional is telling you in general. Then
Mhm.
when something so fragile on the line, such as giving birth, you know what I mean, or having a
Mhm.
baby or carrying a baby successfully, you know what I mean, it's really hard to keep going in the direction, even though I'm there with you and we've had so much progress and so much of a breakthrough. You know what I mean? Like, it was really my first experience as a coach being like, okay, I have to let her go if, like, not like firing
Mhm.
you as a client, but if, she
Mhm.
doesn't want to do this, like, the next best thing that I can do is just be there for her whenever she circles back around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because it's like I couldn't, there's like there's like, first off, you can't force a person to do anything. And because unfortunately the medical community holds so much weight when they speak, like I kind
Mhm.
of felt like I was already up like like, like it almost didn't matter what I said, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because there were some things that you had to like poke out and really like explore before you came back and was like, no, this is really it.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, we ended up seeing the fertility doctor. She took a bunch of labs and um I feel like she was very not thorough either because she was like, "Yep, you do have PCOS, like you're LHFSH, blah blah blah." And I'm like, "Okay, but like why? Like what caused it?" kind of thing. And she's like, "I don't know." But anyways, I did some research into like the different types and how they're caused and it was like, "Take these labs." So she like reluctantly agreed. And like my DHEAS,
Mhm.
which is from the adrenal glands, was elevated. So I kind of like narrowed down like a adrenal PCOS. So my like rabbit trail mind was like, oh, that's what I have. And I feel like it kind of, I was like, oh, so I never had an issue with food. Like I think I kind of went to an extreme of like, I
Yeah.
never had an eating disorder. I never had a problem. It was always this whole time kind of a thing. And that wasn't helpful. I think, kind of the adrenal PCOS, I kind of started like looking into what I can do for that. And that's like acupuncture and adaptogens and, fertility medications. We did 4 rounds of letrozole, which is like a ovulation induction medication. And only one of those actually made me ovulate. And I'm positive that my luteal phase was still too short. And I'm not gonna lie, this fertility doctor that I went to was terrible. Like everything I told her, she would just like shrug or be like, I don't know. Like I was like, I think my luteal phase was still too short. And she's like, you probably don't really know that. And I'm like, yeah, I do. Yeah. Yeah. There was a number of things, even like I asked her because I'd lost weight during this time. Like I'd gotten weight back up and then had lost it. And I had asked her about like, is that something that like is gonna hurt the adrenal PCOS? And she was like, I mean, probably not. She's like, I wouldn't recommend weight loss, but like, if you want to start running, if you want to do anything, like, yeah, like be my guest. Like, especially if it helps with your stress. And I was like, okay. So yeah, kind of went backwards a little bit through the summer. Um, and yeah, really just discouraged that the letrozole just didn't work. And
Okay, so then
so
you had 3 unsuccessful letrozole attempts.
actually 4.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Mhm. Yeah. And so at that point, John and I, that's my husband, we're going on vacation. And so we were like, let's just like pause on this fertility stuff. And he actually heard of a different fertility doctor in our area that we like had some friends that had a really good experience with. So he's like, can we just go to another place? Because this doctor like shrugs you off every time you have a question. I was like, okay. So we went to a different fertility doctor, and this would have been September of 2022. And we met with her and she was like night and day different from the first one that we met. She was very like thoughtful and listening. And like she spent probably an hour and a half with us the first meeting. And she kind of like wrapped up the call by saying, yes, your labs do indicate that you do have some sort of like adrenal PCOS going on. She's like, but you also have HA. She's like,
Mm.
she called it functional HA. She's like, do you know what that is? And I was like, are you kidding me? Yes, I know what this is. I read it like, are you kidding me? We're back to that again, kind of thing. So yeah, she was like, you need to gain weight and then we'll talk. Like, I'm
Oh,
not gonna put you through through the letrozole again because it's not gonna work if you're not at a healthy body weight. And anyways, like say it did happen to work. Say you did have around that like all the perfect things fell into place and it worked. She's like, your body would be at a unhealthy spot. Like it wouldn't be healthy for a baby. And so I don't feel comfortable giving you medication when like you haven't done the work. And I was
oh,
like,
I
oh,
like just need to meet this doctor,
yeah,
just shake her hand. Like
I
honestly,
know.
I'm just so, I think like as a coach, my heart just gets so downtrodden after hearing, I mean, because like your story isn't the only story where individuals have horrific experiences with doctors. And so to finally hear of one
Mhm.
And not
Mhm.
because she was willing to get you pregnant, but because she was like, no, this is what it is. And like, I won't do it because of this, this, and this. I
Mhm.
just feel like what a rare gem. And I just want to meet her in person.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. She was fantastic,
Yeah.
very thorough and very, like, just a really sweet, wise lady. So yeah, she was like, great. So yeah, after that appointment, I was just in tears. It was like, "Are you kidding me? We're, like, back at ground zero, like, I don't wanna have to gain weight. I thought I got out of that, like, oh, kind of a thing." I think my husband was just like, "Oh gosh, I'm sorry." So yeah, I
He's
was
like, I suggested this person to her.
yeah, yeah, and at the same time, he told me, he was like, "I think she's right. I think, like, I don't feel comfortable with you going on any more of those meds either, because like, you have lost weight and you don't look healthy anymore."
Yeah.
Because at that point, I was probably back down to I think I lost, I don't know, 12 pounds over the summer, like, kind of a lot. So yeah, I was at, like, 97 pounds, when I had that meeting with the fertility doctor. Um, so yeah, I was like, "Great." I thought I could kinda get by with just being here. So, at that point, I was like, "All right, I'm gonna put back in place everything that Ashley told me, even though I was like, 'Nah, that's not for me.'"
Can't
So yeah,
possibly be me. This can't be my problem. This can't be it.
yeah. So I had really gotten into running over the summer. So I stopped all running. I went back to the, like, small frequent meals, just like me and you had done. Like, I was very diligent. I almost, like, didn't need that accountability anymore. I feel like mostly just because I was so done with the process. I was like, okay, we are years into this now. And like, I was ready to have a family, like, yeah, like years ago. Like, I'm like not looking back, I'm moving straight forward. And so yeah, I was very, very diligent about it and went from 97 pounds to about 117 in, oh, I guess I was probably like end of September through like December, January timeframe. So in a couple months. And like every month I guess it was like a cycle might have been, I got a period, it was maybe after 60 days and then after 40 and then after 30. And then the luteal phase were lengthening. So it was very obvious that my body was like, finally, finally, kind of a thing. So yeah, periods were coming back. I was like, okay, this doctor was right. Ashley was right. Everybody was right all along. How to do this.
This isn't
Um,
PCOS. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah. And
yeah.
so, I mean, I think there was like a PCOS component, but it was because I was underweight. My body was super stressed out. That's why my
Yes.
DHEAS was elevated, like the
Yes.
adrenal gland was elevated. So, yeah, and
And
actually,
that's one thing that we say all the time is that it is very possible to have both, but we still
mhm,
have to address the HA. You know what I mean? So that's why when people are like, I have both, I'm like, okay, well, let's do the first step, because you not having a cycle forever that's no longer PCOS. You know what I
mhm,
mean? Like we're at something else now. And I think that you can actually really only tell if you have PCOS once your cycle returns and your hormone levels have returned to normal, then you can actually get a reading. But also consider how much, I mean, DHEA, can be released just from your adrenals being taxed, right?
mhm, mhm,
And what we don't understand is that like not having a cycle, being under fueled and under recovered is stressful for the body. So I'm actually not ever really surprised to see those labs elevated with someone with HA. And I'm like, well, yeah, your body's under actually a lot of stress. Like it's not just mental, emotional stress, it is nutritional stress and physical stress. So think about like nutritional stress, we're under eating. And because we are forcing our body to exercise, we have to prioritize that. Now you are physically stressed. You know what I mean? It's
mhm,
enough to raise those, HPA axis like hormones that, like, I'm not too shocked. I'm not saying that we don't have adrenal PCOS, but we can actually only really get to that diagnosis like after our cycle has been recovered and our hormones have been restored. So I just love this story. I mean, I hate that it's so episodic for you, right?
Yeah.
But I just, okay, not that I love the story. I just love that you're sharing the story, because I just know that
Yeah.
so many women are going to have so many light bulb moments. You know what I mean? Okay, so keep going, keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I will say, like, during that time of like end of September through like January when I was gaining the weight, I've definitely felt this like plunge ahead, like move forward, like, whereas like previously when I would see weight gain, I feel like I would just kind of like run, be like, wait, I don't like that. I don't know if I'm going to keep doing that anymore. Kind of a thing. So that was really good. And I feel like I kind of even had a little bit of a breakthrough moment. This was when I've always had pretty long hair, and I brought up to my husband about like getting like a pixie cut or like something kind of shorter. And he is like always very much so encouraging me to gain weight. He says like I would look better with weight gain and stuff like that. But he, poor guy, had said something like, I don't know if you should like cut your hair like that because you have a round face and that would probably not be like flattering. Like he was just trying to like give me a helpful tip, but I took it very much like, you think I have a round face? You think I'm like getting a rounder face? Like that's like the whole point that I've been doing this thing for. And he was like, no, it's not what I meant. You try to like, back out of it and everything. Anyways, normally a comment like that would really like, I don't know, hang with me a little bit more, but like I was like so excited to go get a pixie cut. Like it was I like went to get I was like, oh, maybe I won't do it because maybe it won't look good, blah blah, like after talking to him about it. But like on my drive there, like the next day, I was like, yes, I'm for sure doing this. And like if this accentuates my round face, what is wrong with that? There's not a problem with that at all. Like, I don't know, it's just like a very much a moment of like acceptance of like, why
Yes.
have I ever had a problem with that? Like there's no, I don't know. So anyways, I got a pixie cut and was like, yeah, I have a round face. I don't care. Kind of
My
a
face
thing.
isn't
And
changing. This is it. Welcome to
yeah,
my face.
I think it's fine. So yeah, that was really good and really neat to, I used to get stomach aches all the time from feeling just, I don't know, for no reason getting stressed. Like I hadn't slept that day and I was like, we have Crohn's. I should, I don't know. And then just like get a stomach ache over, that's kind of an exaggeration, but over really stupid things. And I don't get crazy, like, I don't know, anxious over dumb stuff anymore, which is great. So yeah, that's been a huge change. And so, yeah, okay, kind of moving on. A couple, in December, we were actually conceived again, which wasn't a surprise to me at all. I knew probably like the day that we conceived, I was like, we totally conceived. I know it. I know we ovulated, blah, blah, blah. And then 2 weeks later, I took a pregnancy test and it was positive, and I was just like absolutely thrilled. Like I knew this was going to, like, this worked finally, blah, blah, blah. I had an annual physical with my OB. Probably like a week and a half later after taking the pregnancy test. And I was so excited to like, go and get to tell her and everything like that. Told her, and she's like, okay, if you want to just take a pregnancy test. And she came back in the room and was like, oh, the line's faded. Like you shouldn't have a faded line right now. And I was like, what? Yeah, it was really sad. So she was like, yeah, I think you're probably about to miscarry. I was like, oh my gosh. Okay, so that was very, I think those couple weeks after, I was just so sad and like, okay, I don't even know anymore. Like, what if we have this whole other issue that we didn't know about? And so, yeah, I think I was just, struggling with like anger at my body or what the heck is going on. And surprise, probably, I don't know, around 2 weeks after we had the bleeding from the pregnancy loss, we conceived again. And yeah, now we are almost 17 weeks pregnant. So that's kind of a fun little bow to the end of it. Yeah.
And and then like in that time, I remember like being like, she just let me just like reach out to her, just because I always felt like, like you were the one client that got away. I was like, no, we have unfinished business.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, I mean, I just love that you have been able to like keep pushing forward and being like, no, I know that I know that I know that like I'm supposed to be a mom. I'm supposed to, have a baby. And wow, I definitely like everyone's story is unique. So it's not like this is your story, but like I just think that like there's so much that people have to have for their firsthand evidence before they like dive in and they're like, this is HA and this is fixable and I'm going to fix it. And I'm choosing now to like do the things that I potentially was afraid of before. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. This is just a wild. And so yes, you said that you're about 17 weeks.
Yeah.
Uh, and I know that we could probably have like part two of like, what does it feel like? Like, how do we navigate stewarding like joy, you know what I mean? And like not holding our breath for like 40 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a whole other podcast. And so like, we're gonna have to have you come back on and really
Okay.
just
Well,
kinda, like share that, just because like that is a thing, And I think it's also one of those things of like I think sometimes because we're so used to there's an option of like IVF, meaning that we have somehow eliminated the human experience of like sometimes there are miscarriages. And like I think like I even get shocked sometimes, like because it's just like I think like we almost forget like that this truly is a miracle, even if you do or don't have HA. You know what I mean? Like, like life is still being like created, and like we don't just get to put a formula to it and then like ensure that it happens every single time the first time. You know what I mean? It's like, oh
yeah.
my gosh, like this is like an actual thing. You know what I mean? I don't know if I conveyed that properly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a shocking reality. And I think too, just with that control piece being woven through kind of
Yeah.
a lot of our stories. Yeah, it's very much like it is out of our control kind of a thing. Like at the end of the day, like you can't keep trying to hold on to control because life doesn't work that way.
Yeah, and that's like the biggest thing. I was just talking with the client last night and I was just like, look here, all I know is that for everybody that recovers, they have to let go of control. That you can't bring that into your healing journey. You can't bring that into the other side. And for some people, it looks like, allowing themselves to snack. For some people, it's letting go of a push up and a plank routine in the morning. Sometimes it's letting go of yoga. And none of these things in itself is enough to like scare away someone's cycle, right? But it's always the mental attachment to it. You know what I mean? And so I'm always just like,
Mhm.
I'm here to help you find your last piece of where you're holding on to control. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Oh, so good. Thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing your story. Guys, this is just one of the many stories that like and just we're just blessed to be a part of people's lives and just watch this develop and support and guide. And so Sarah, you've done so much work on your own that like we just want to just say we are just in awe of your tenacity. And so thank you for sharing your story.
absolutely. Thank you. Thanks for having me on and for your encouragement through all of these years. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it. Mhm.
All right. Okay, so you just had the chance to hear Sarah's story, and I just think it's a great example of, you know, being torn into PCOS or is this HA, and how, it's just a great example of why we need to address the HA first. So if you are ready to address your HA, your lack of ovulation, and to get pregnant naturally. Restore Your Fertility is open for applications. The reason why we have applications is because we want to make sure that you do in fact have HA or HA and PCOS, because those are the women that we work with. And that is where we are able to really help people restore their cycle. AKA meaning that like we're not working with women with like closed fallopian tubes. You know what I mean? Or like those types of wild things that would prevent someone from getting pregnant. We are very passionate about this group of women because they've been told that they can't get pregnant naturally, that they must have IVF, they must use fertility treatments, and it's just simply not true. So we look forward to seeing your application, and Restore Your Fertility kicks off in June. All right.
This episode is brought to you by Grassland Nutrition beef liver capsules. Did you know that in terms of nutrient density, beef liver actually blows vegetables and fruits out of the water? If you're a client of mine, you have already been instructed to eat beef liver either fresh or in capsule form. I recommend it for anyone and everyone who is, of course, dealing with amenorrhea and fertility challenges out there, but I may even recommend it for just everyone in general. Get your husbands on it, get your partners on it. If you have a history of HA and add on top of that maybe a history of the pill, maybe you've been pregnant before, through treatments or other, like your body's been through anything, you're absolutely 100% dealing with a nutrient deficiency of some kind. And while it's true that testing is going to be the best way to understand those exact deficiencies, eating nutrient-dense, real food is going to be one of the most important next steps that you take with or without testing. So I've been using and recommending Grassland Nutrition beef liver capsules for years now. And the capsule form makes it so easy to get your liver in every day. And I appreciate the transparency of this product in particular above others. So in case you're wondering, it's completely natural. This is freeze-dried beef liver in capsules. It's organic, it's made from Australian beef, and my favorite of their products is the liver with kelp because of the iodine from the kelp, which is important for overall thyroid function, which is often low in women with underperforming hormones. So rather than eat seaweed snacks every day, I get to take this beef liver with the kelp for my iodine. So if you're recovering or working on a fertility journey right now, do not skimp the nutrient-rich source of beef liver. Get 10% off your order with the HA Society and support your favorite podcast along the way. They ship to most countries, so you should be covered. Just go to grasslandnutrition.net and use HA Society, just HA Society, at the checkout for the 10% off. That's grasslandnutrition.net with the code HA Society. Thank you so much for listening today, guys. Please subscribe to the podcast, and if you could head to iTunes specifically and leave a rating or review, that would help so much because it makes it easier for other people with HA who are Googling around to find the podcast really easily. So if you do that, you're doing a service to all of the women